My name is Bill Blair. I'm the Minister of Emergency Preparedness, and I'm also the President of the King's Privy Council. My most important job, of course, is I'm a Member of Parliament representing Scarborough Southwest. And of course, I'm a member of the Liberal Party and a member of our government. I'd spent almost 4 decades of my life as a police officer and as the police chief in the city of Toronto, and I think public service is the highest calling. And after I completed my police career, I wanted to continue in public service. And one of the things that I had learned in my 4 decades of policing is how important the political processes are. And so I was given the opportunity to come here and to contribute to good public policy, investments that actually make a difference in our communities. And this for me is just a way to continue in that life of service. One of the most important work that we do is representing the interests and concerns of our constituents, and I'm very pleased. I represent a community that I grew up in Scarborough Southwest, and it's an incredibly diverse community, and I'm very pleased about that. But on a public policy standpoint, I've had the opportunity to be involved in some rather important initiatives. I was given responsibility by the Prime Minister to develop and shepherd in the introduction of our legislation, which strictly regulated the production, distribution, and consumption of cannabis, that I think made a very significant difference for Canadians and the health and safety of Canadians. I've also been responsible for some of the important measures that we've taken with respect to gun control. But perhaps I think being part of a government that has raised almost 500,000 kids out of poverty, and that has really created a real opportunity and respect for the incredible diversity which makes this country such a great country, I would count being a part of that government among my proudest accomplishments. I have found that there's no higher calling than public service, and the opportunity to work with people and work with incredibly dedicated people here is one of the reasons I'm still working after almost 50 years in public service, and working with constituents and community organizations and people who turn to all 3 orders of government for assistance, and being able to be there for them is incredibly rewarding. I'd always had one of the most political, non-political jobs in the country as a police chief, and particularly the police chief in Toronto. You work in a very political environment, but it's absolutely critical that you not be particularly partisan. But one of the things I've learned about politics is actually the way in which we get things done. And in developing policy which is based on shared values and goals, and the way we work with the opposition, with our critics, with our colleagues in caucus and cabinet, is really, I've gained a much better understanding of the machinery of government. And one of the most important lessons I learned is that the opposition is not the enemy. They actually represent Canadians in every part of this country. And one of the most powerful things for me is being in the House of Parliament, where there's 330 representatives of all of the people of Canada in that room. And the diversity of perspectives that you hear in that room, I think, makes us better at what we do. One of my responsibilities in emergency preparedness is also to respond to some of the very significant emergencies that take place in this country. And for example, in 2021, there was terrible flooding that took place in central BC, in the Cascade region and the Fraser Valley. Almost all of those ridings were represented by opposition members of the Conservative Party. And so the very next morning, I reached out to them all and I said, come to my office. Let's talk about what we need to do for your constituents, because they're Canadians and they needed our help. And we really, in that work, I always find in an emergency, when people need, especially when people need us to all think about their safety and recovery from such an event, politics doesn't matter that much. Partisanship certainly doesn't matter. What really matters is that we share a commitment to do what is right and to help people through some of the more difficult times. I think one of the challenges that I see is, I think the diversity of opinion is one of the things that makes Canada an incredibly strong country. But what we're seeing is a greater polarization. And I think sometimes we need to go back to listening to each other and not be so, mired and entrenched in our own, set of beliefs but listen sincerely to others. I think that is, it's both a challenge and an opportunity. I think it is a challenge that our politics is becoming far more polarized in this country, but I think there's an opportunity and a challenge to us all that we can do better. You know, one of the things that's extraordinary to me is, as I say, I've been involved in the public service for almost 5 decades. But when I came here, I'm surrounded by, young staffers they really want to make a difference. A lot of them are exceptionally well educated. They come from every diverse perspective right across the country. And their enthusiasm for their country and for the future of their country continues to inspire me every day. One of the things I learned as a young adult and then in later aspects of my life is how the importance of education. And so to a 16-year-old, I would encourage myself to focus more and maintain the path of your education, get as much as you possibly could. Like, I really came back to the importance of education in my mid-20s. Perhaps I might have benefited from an earlier focus on that. And the other thing I would tell my young self, again, as something I've learned over time, get involved in your community, get involved in public service, get out there and get to know the incredible diversity of our community and help people. There are life lessons in that and skills that you can acquire that'll just make you a better citizen.